Hello, welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Mr. Robot Season 4, Episode 4, Not Found. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Mr. Robot, so I have to start with a spoiler warning for Mr. Robot up to Season 4, Episode 4. If you haven't seen up to this episode, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, this was another, dare I say, filler episode. It was another, one of those episodes that was supposed to be a character introspective, which I don't think actually quite works. I just watched BoJack Horseman, the latest, the first half of the season just came out, and watching that and then watching this makes me realize that BoJack Horseman is actually much better at doing these character introspective episodes than Mr. Robot. Don't get me wrong, I love Mr. Robot. But it seems like whenever they try to do these character introspective episodes like the one in Season 3 with the little kid and they want us to see Back to the Future, or Episode 2 when, they were going through, Darlene and Elliot's mother died and they're going through her shit, and this episode where they're just trapped in the woods talking for the whole time and Darlene meets some drunk Santa Claus. They're not good. I'm sorry, or I personally don't like it. And I think other shows like BoJack Horseman is another great example. I should be reviewing that. But anyway, that when they do these character introspective episodes, they are good. And I do seem really interesting to me. Whereas when those 3 episodes I mentioned about Mr. Robot, I think they're come off as pretentious to me. Particularly the one in Season 3. They come off as they're trying too hard to be all indie and edgy and all that, and I wish they would just stop it. I think that's an effect of that episode in Season 3, which I really didn't like. A lot of people did like it. Some people went as far as to say it was the best episode of the season. It's easily the worst. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. But because that episode was so popular, that negatively influenced the showrunners, I think. They thought, oh, let's do that some more. No, stop doing it. It's not good. Ugh. Anyway, don't get me wrong. I didn't think this episode was terrible. In fact, I was really on board with most of it, actually. Throughout, I didn't think it was great. Obviously, I thought, oh, they're doing one of those character introspective things. But for the most part, I thought I was with it. I was like, this actually works. At least the Darlene Elliot stuff, the Dom stuff, they can just shove out, flush down the toilet for all I care. But I'll get to that later. But then that ending, I think, ruined the Elliot stuff. Which was, I think, it was my favorite of the episode. Because the Darlene, the drunk Santa thing was a bit, I have my issues with that as well. But it was okay. But, so my favorite was the interactions between Elliot and Tyrell. And that ending, I'm hoping that later episodes will justify that ending. Because what the fuck happened? What the hell is going on? It was just too weird. Alright, let me get into this. Let me start with the Elliot and Tyrell stuff, because I thought that was the most interesting, as I said, because it did have a really great start. It totally went in a different direction than I thought it would go in after last week's episode, because I thought maybe, I thought it was a possibility that wasn't even the Dark Army that was listening into Elliot, that it might have been Vera or something. I'm glad it wasn't Vera. I know I'm just delaying the inevitable for that fucker to come back, but whatever. Don't have to talk about him this week. But, so it was weird, though, that they actually, and I kind of, while I was watching the scene, I knew where they were headed with it. As soon as, he was having problems hearing what they were saying, and it was just Elliot talking, oh, I bet you the Tyrell's going out there to ambush the guy, and sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And I thought that was cool. That surprised me. He's dead, and they're going to drive out to bury the body, and they stop at a gas station for supplies. I think it was a really good premise. It was a funny, because he was oh, he's dead. And he's not dead. He drives off in the van. And that scene, I gotta admit, at the gas station, where that person was like, "Why do I know you?" And he's like, "Yes, I was on Big Brother." It's like, "Oh, that's right." And then later, after they drive off, the dude drives off the van, they're stuck, they're asking for directions. She's still like, oh, you're Tyrell Wellick. I didn't know you were on Big Brother. And it was so funny. Like, she kept going on and on and on. And finally, Elliot was... Actually, no, it was Mr. Robot. But from her perspective, it would be Elliot. It was like, just fucking tell us where it is. That was so funny because she was so oblivious like that they were really not in the mood to talk to her. I mean, it is a trope, but I think it does work. So anyway, they go off and take the shortcut to get to the nearest town, and of course they get lost. They never find the creek. You hear the weird animal noise in the background, and so it just becomes a thing with... I thought it was interesting to finally get some interactions between not just Tyrell and Elliot, but also Mr. Robot there. And Tyrell, of course, doesn't know that both Elliot and Mr. both personalities of Elliot are there. He doesn't. I think the problem with this storyline is that it went on too long. It dragged on too long. I think it was a good idea, and I liked the Elliot and Tyrell interactions. It was good seeing those two interacting and being stuck in the situation, but it just dragged. And at one point in the episode, I realized that this was going to be the entire episode, that the one entire... And I think it's also worse because it's intercut between two other boring storylines that drag. That certainly didn't help it. And I think they just wanted to do this gimmick where they want to do an entire episode of Tyrell and Elliot and Mr. Robot trapped in the woods walking and thinking that they're going to die. Or really, I think this should have been like a 10-minute sequence, and then they moved on to other things. It does make me... I'm sorry, but after watching some of season 2 and then watching season 3, I'm afraid to say it is very much looking like season 4 is having more of a season 2 feel to it. And if you don't know what I mean season 2 dragged and it was way too long. They had 13 episodes or 12 episodes. They could have done it in 6, maybe 7 or 8, but it was mostly filler. Dragged on for way too long. Now, to be clear, I don't think season 3, at least we're only 4 episodes in, but so far it's not as bad as season 2, but it's definitely worse. I mean, worse than season 3. It's not as bad as season 2, but it's worse than season... Because season 3, I just watched that. That was, like, each episode was impact, like, totally amazing, except for... episode 8, which this episode resembles. And, but the rest of season 3 was like boom, boom, boom. It was like really powerful, impactful, every single episode. And unless season 4 picks it up maybe later in the season, it's not going to be as good as season 3, in my opinion. But who knows? Maybe they're going to run towards the end and it'll be great. But so far, it seems like they don't need this many episodes. It seems like they could have condensed, like these past 4 episodes, I think they could have condensed them into 2. Maybe 3, we'll say, but definitely don't need 4, and hopefully this won't continue, because it's, as I said, the sequence, them being stuck in the woods, like this could have been 10 minutes. Like you could have combined this with the next episode instead of having to like be stretched out and put in these 2 useless storylines with it to intercut with, which we didn't really need at all. Alright, so then, but when we get to the end, when they're walking on the road, they see the dead deer, like, that was an intense sequence. That was part of the episode I loved, which is why I like the storyline. I just wish it was trim the fuck out of it, to trim the fat out, but when it's good, it's good. And it was such an intense scene when we saw the van crashed on the side of the road, and they had that really intense music, and I was really feeling like I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, oh, really tense. It really got me engaged. It was so good. And they had the shootout, and I was like, oh my god, that's so intense. And they revealed Tyrell's shot, and I was like, holy fucking shot. Like, that was a good sequence. And then they go and ruin it with some weird bullshit. Now, I'm hopeful that they will do something in the future. They're not going to just pull Lost and just Tyrell's dead and we have no idea what the hell happened. What was that blue light that was looking at? What the fuck was that noise they kept hearing in the background? I hope they don't pull Lost and just be like, oh, it's ambiguous. It's up for you to decide. Bullshit. Do not do that to me. Give me a definitive, firm answer. Make it tie it in to the ending, perhaps tie it into the main storyline, if you will. Don't just because that's why I'm saying that ending with Tyrell, at the moment I don't like it, but they could make me like it in retrospect if they do something interesting with it. If they do nothing with it, then I'm going to hate it even more. I'm going to deem that a pretentious pile of shit if they don't follow up on this in any... Like, if we just never see Tyrell again and we get no follow-up, they just move past it and pretend it never happened, then I'm going to look back at this episode as one of the single worst episodes of the show. But if they do follow up on it, they explain it, they tie it into the main storyline, I might elevate my feelings about this episode, that scene in particular. I might look back in that scene and go, wow, that's actually an amazing setup. So it's hard to say at the moment. It's really dependent on what kind of follow through they give, because if they give no follow through, then this is just pretentious garbage, which is kind of where I'm leaning now. But if they do something interesting with it, I could change my mind about that. But it seems a bit weird, like how it was the whatever he was looking at was glowing blue, and there was like blue light coming from it, and it was making apparently it was the thing that was making that noise the whole time they kept hearing. And Tyrell kind of like, ooh. So that scene looks cheesy on its own, but if they actually explain it, they could make me like it. Although I will say, like, the whole thing about Tyrell going off alone to die after he got shot, I'm not going to go to the hospital, I'm just going to go for a walk. That was kind of dumb. He's the CEO of a fucking company now. I mean, and I don't think that fits in his character. And the whole way, the earlier part of the episode, was I'm just going to give up and die. I think that goes against his character. He has been portrayed as a really selfish prick who would want to stay alive at all costs. So I don't actually quite buy that for his character, although I will say I did like the moment where Elliot went back for him and said, look, I realized I knew we're going to die ever since the van was gone, but I just need to get and call my sister and save her. And how he's like, can you please come with me? And he's like, okay. Like, that was touching. That was a nice scene. I like that. But as for the rest of it, we'll see where they go with it. Now, let me talk about the other two storylines in this episode, which I'm not going to take as much time to talk about because there's not much to talk about there because they're filler. Let me talk about the Darlene. This one in particular is what reminded me a lot of that episode in season 3 with the little kid and they go to... Because that episode pissed me off because it was so contrived. Like, people don't talk like that. The little kid wouldn't actually act like that, and they wouldn't like just randomly go see Back to the Future. And it's the same thing here. Like, you wouldn't have the way that the drunk Santa was interacting with Darlene. I was like, that it felt... No, people don't talk like that to each other. They don't just go up to a stranger and have this conversation. She wouldn't just go up and be like, oh, my brother's so pissed off, blah, blah. That screams TV contrivance. Like, oh, let's have this character have her character moment, and she just screams to a random drunk stranger all her personal shit. That's fake. I don't buy it. It's bullshit. People don't do that. That's a TV cliche. It's a cliche. It's a contrivance. Well, maybe I shouldn't say TV cliche. Maybe I should say indie film cliche because it's kind of like that, and I don't like it. I'm sorry. And I mean, I didn't totally hate this storyline. Like, it wouldn't ruin the episode for me if the other storyline was a bit punchier. But it was totally unnecessary, I believe. I mean, I don't think you needed this for Darlene's character. I kept thinking that maybe Darlene, when she was driving back, would run into Elliot and Miss Robot. I know that would be very fake and serendipitous, but I would actually love it if that happened. I was really hoping that would happen, but I don't know the geography. Maybe they're in two totally different locations, but I thought that would be even though it would be really contrived, I'd still love it because it would be interesting to justify her storyline in some way at the moment. Like, and when, I guessed, like, from the start that wasn't that guy's car. Like, I'm still unclear if he was, like, fully aware that it wasn't his car, if he was just too drunk and he was like actually thought. I think they're kind of playing it off like he was too drunk and he actually thought it was his car, and then he got home and he realized, like, oh yeah, that's right, someone drove me in. This isn't actually my car, because they were playing him as that drunk. But at first I thought that he knew it wasn't his car. He just wanted to ride. I don't know. You could argue either way, but it was predictable either way, and so I wasn't very impressed with it. And I thought the way he came back out to the car when she was still sitting, and it was like, hey, your brother, blah blah blah. It's supposed to be profound, making her feel better, but it's just pretentious nonsense to me. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. Anyway, let's get to the Dom storyline, which I think was actually much worse. This is inarguably filler. This inarguably totally did not need to exist. It is a complete and utter waste of time. It doesn't develop the character or the situation or tells anything that we didn't already know. It does nothing. This is what mainly reminds me of Season 2, because we got a lot of scenes in Season 2 with Dom like this that were a complete waste of time, and now we're getting, Season 3 didn't have any of those, but now all of a sudden we're getting them again, where why is this show so obsessed with showing Dom masturbating? I mean, is that really a strong character trait that they need to get across? And the whole thing, it's like, maybe this episode would have been a little interesting if it wasn't a dream. It being a dream, like, making something a dream is always, like, the worst kind of TV device or storytelling device you can do. I mean, there's rare cases where it works. Like, it actually worked in Season 1 when Elliot had that weird drug-induced dream. But it's hard. You have to work hard to make this trope work, because usually it doesn't work. And I can think of a few other cases in TV where it does, but most of them it doesn't. And this one, most certainly it does not, because it just tells us that she's lonely, she craves attention, and she feels trapped by the Dark Army. Duh! It's like we didn't already fucking know that. They've already done a great job of hammering that point home. The lonely stuff, like, they hammered the fuck out of it. They beat the dead horse with that in Season 2. We damn well know that. We don't need any more of that bullshit. Stop showing her masturbating. It doesn't help her character. It's just a waste of time. Why are you doing this? And then the whole thing about her feeling trapped by the Dark Army, it's like they hammered that home in the first 2 episodes of the season. They made that very clear and a very intense. Even though I thought the second episode was a bit cheesy, they still made it a very, like, that first episode when they first introduced crazy taxidermy, like, that was amazing. That's actually, in fact, all you need. Like what they did with her in the first episode by showing her, like, almost shoot the guy who's renovating the bathroom, and then having her being on this, blind date, turns out being working for the Dark Army, and threatening to fucking slice her mother. Like, that's all you need. You did such a great job. Congratulations of showing how trapped and fucked up she is. Don't waste our time with this bullshit that doesn't tell us anything more that we didn't already know, that you didn't already do a great job already telling you. Wasting our time. Definition of filler. Sorry. I had to get that off my chest. Anyway, my rating for Not Found out of 10, I'm going to give this a 4. Poor. And I was actually thinking about giving this episode a 6 during the episode, but then that ending was just like a bit cheesy. Now, the 4 has little asterisks to it, because if they actually do something really great with the Tyrell storyline in the future, I might elevate this in retrospect to a 6. But not more than a 6, because even if it does storyline with Elliot we totally needed, and it turns out having such meaning and powerful for the rest of the season, the Darlene and especially the Dom storylines still will not. They never will. They were a complete waste of pretentious waste of time. They were completely unnecessary. It's just they're padding out the season the same way they did with Season 2. It's not a impact punchful season like Season 3 is. Unfortunately, it will never be, because these first 4 episodes already ruined that, in my opinion. But it still could be a better season than Season 2. So hopefully the second half or the latter half of the season will start picking up the pace a bit, but at the moment it seems like they're just dragging this out in order to have. I saw an interview with Sam Esmail where he said that they were planning the season beforehand and they planned out specifically they needed 13 episodes. I think they should have rethought that. I don't think you need 13 episodes. I think these, as I said, these first 4, it could have been 2, maybe 3. Anyway, that is it. For my review of Season 4, Episode 4, Not Found. I will be back in weeks to come to review Mr. Robot, so be sure to check out my channel for that. Also, check out my channel as I do many more reviews and other shows like Lost, The Expanse, Star Trek, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.